Okay, hi. Welcome back to another lunar video. Today I'm gonna be doing yet another scary commentary because I feel like I haven't done these in like quite some time and I wanted to bring these back again because they're super fun to make. So yeah, we're just gonna jump right into it. And today I'm actually gonna start off with the story instead of what I usually do, which is like explaining the urban legend or crime first. But the story of this is actually really interesting, so I thought I'd give you guys like a little story time. So, my grandparents lived in Japan. Every summer, my parents would take me there on a holiday to visit them. They lived in a small village and they had a big backyard. I loved to play there during the summer, and when we arrived, my grandparents always welcomed me with open arms. I was their only grandchild, so they always spoiled me. One day, I was playing out in the backyard. My grandparents were inside the house. It was a hot summer's day, and I lay down on the grass to rest. I stared up at the clouds and enjoyed the feeling of the soft rays of the sun and the gentle breeze. Just as I was about to get up, I heard a strange sound. Paw, paw, paw. I didn't know what it was, and it was hard to figure out where it was coming from. It sounded almost like somebody was making the noise themselves, as if they were just saying paw, paw, paw over and over again in a deep masculine voice. I was looking around, searching for the source of the noise, when I suddenly noticed something on top of the tall hedges that enclosed the backyard. It was a straw hat. It wasn't resting on the hedge, it was behind it. That's where the sound was coming from. Paw, paw, paw. Then, the hat began to move, as if someone was wearing it. The hat stopped at a small gap in the hedge, and I could see a face peering through. It was a woman, but the hedges were high, almost 8 feet tall. I was surprised at how tall the woman was. I wondered if she was wearing stilts or some sort of huge high heeled shoes. Then, a split second later, she walked off, and the strange noise disappeared with her, fading into the distance. Bewildered, I got up and wandered back into the house. My grandparents were in the kitchen drinking tea. I sat down at the table, and after a while, I told my grandparents what I'd seen. They weren't really paying attention to me until I mentioned that distinctive sound. Puh, puh, puh. As soon as I said that, both of them suddenly froze. Grandma's eyes grew wide, and she covered her mouth with her hand. Grandpa's face became very serious, and he grabbed me by the arm. "This is very important," he said in an intense voice. "You must tell us exactly. How tall was she?" "As tall as the garden hedge," I replied. My grandfather bombarded me with questions. Where was she standing? When did this happen? What did you do? Did she see you? I tried to answer all his questions as best as I could. He suddenly rushed out to the hallway and made a phone call. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I looked over at my grandma and she was trembling. Grandpa came barging back into the room and spoke to my grandmother. "I've got to go out for a while," he said. "You stay here with the child. Don't take your eyes off of him for a second." "What's going on, Grandpa?" I cried. He looked at me with a sad expression in his eyes and said, "You've been liked by Hachisaku-sama." As we sat nervously in the kitchen waiting for my grandfather to come back, she explained what was happening. She told me there was a dangerous thing that was haunting the area. They called it Hachishaku-sama because of its height. In Japanese, that means 8 feet tall. It takes on the appearance of an extremely tall woman and it makes a sound like po, po, po in a deep male voice. It appears slightly differently depending on who sees it. Some say it looks like a haggard old woman in a kimono, and others say it is a girl in a white funeral shroud. One thing that never changes is its height and the sound it makes. And the last time it appeared was 15 years ago. My grandmother said that anyone who saw an 8 feet tall woman was destined to die within a few days. After a while, Grandpa and Grandma took me upstairs and brought me to my bedroom. The windows were covered in newspaper and lots of ancient runes had been written on them. There were small bowls of salt in all four corners of the room and a small Buddha figure placed at the center of the room on top of a wooden box. Grandpa sat me down on the bed and said, "Soon the sun will be setting, so listen carefully. You must stay in this room until tomorrow morning. You must not come out under any circumstances until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Your grandmother and your grandfather will not speak to you or call you until then. Remember, do not leave the room for any reason until then. I will let your parents know what is going on." When I woke up, it was just after 1 a.m. All of a sudden, I realized that something was tapping on the window. Tap, tap, tap. That was when I heard Grandpa calling me. "Are you okay in there?" he asked. "If you're scared, you don't have to stay in there all alone. I can come in and keep you company." I smiled and rushed over to open the door, but then I stopped in my tracks. I had goosebumps all over my body. It sounded like Grandpa's voice, but somehow it was different. I couldn't tell what it was, but I just knew. "What are you doing?" Grandpa asked. "You can open the door now." Then I heard the voice outside the door saying, "Po, po, po." All this happened more than 10 years ago. I haven't seen my grandparents since then, and I haven't been able to so much as set foot in the country after I left it. My grandfather died 2 years ago, and my grandmother also called a few days ago. She said that she'd been diagnosed with cancer. She missed me terribly and wanted to see me one last time before she died. Are you sure, Grandma? I asked. Is it safe? It's been 10 years, she said. All that happened was a long time ago. It's all forgotten. You're all grown up now. I'm sure there won't be a problem. But, but what about Hachishaku-sama? I said. For a moment, there was silence on the other end of the phone. Then I heard a deep, masculine voice saying, Po, Po.